What is up, everyone? It's Quinn here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going through 3 must-draft league-winning running backs for fantasy football this season. So these 3 guys are going to be going in different places in your fantasy drafts. I have one early round guy, one dude going in the middle rounds, and then one dude who's going more in like the double-digit later round areas. Just giving you 3 different players that I think have a lot of upside and are currently being underdrafted. If you guys enjoy the video, do me a huge favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you guys want my full rankings for free, you can get them if you download the Google Sheet in the description. And let's just dive right into my first league-winning running back, and it is going to be Achane. He's currently being drafted as the running back 11. He's like a 2-3 turn pick, late second, early third when we're looking at consensus ADP. And I definitely understand that Achane is one of the most polarizing players for fantasy this season, but I am all in on him. I want to start off by just talking about the reasons why I really like Achane, starting off with just the fact that he is an undeniably really good player. As a rookie running back, he had one of the most efficient seasons of all time. He averaged 7.8 yards per carry on over 100 attempts. You don't just do that being some random running back. Even in a good system, you have to be a really, really good player to have that type of efficiency over the volume he did see. He was number 1 in yards per touch. He was number 1 in fantasy points per opportunity. And he was also number 1 in breakaway run rate. He averaged 2.87 rushing yards over expected per attempt. That is a full yard better than the next highest player ever since the NFL started tracking in 2018. So he was, getting more than he was supposed to, significantly more than any other running back we have seen so far. When we look at his 9 healthy games last year, he averaged 20.8 PPR points per game. I feel like some people, maybe they think his upside is a little bit limited. Well, when he was healthy and out there, he was giving you 20 plus PPR points per game. And in those matchups where he was healthy, he was averaging 11.2 carries and 3.9 targets per game. So he's not going to have a monster workload, like a Breece Hall or a CMC or a Bijan Robinson, prime Derrick Henry, but like 15 opportunities a game with the opportunity to grow on that in year 2. To me, I don't think that's all that bad when you do have the efficiency of a guy like Achane. And I also think there's room to grow in the receiving game. We know Mike McDaniel is going to use him creatively. Maybe he doesn't want to rush him down the middle a million times a game, but get him out wide, put him in a slot, let him play wide receiver a little bit. I think that's a spot where he can improve fantasy-wise in 2024. Now I'll just touch on some of the concerns, maybe, lessen some of the concerns you guys do have with Achane. I feel like the first one is that people are worried about his size / him kind of being injury prone. And then I think the other major concern is Raheem Mostert's usage. I'll start off by talking about the size, injury prone stuff. Not trying to be harsh here, but every year in my comment section, it's like clockwork. Someone will get injured the year before, and then people just say, oh, they're injury prone, I'm not drafting them. And at least personally, I feel like more often than not, when people say injury prone, it really just means they had 1 or 2 seasons of bad luck. Running backs get injured. It's a physically demanding position. If you want to make the argument that the position as a whole is injury prone, I'd probably accept that. But Achane missed 6 games last year. We look back to his, college health. He missed 4 total games in 3 seasons. So unless a player is just chronically injuring the same area, like if they consistently are pulling their hamstring, like a Christian Watson, or if they're just consistently, spraining the same ankle, breaking the same ankle, whatever it is, then I'll, be a little bit concerned. But I'm not going to freak out when one running back has like one slightly injury-riddled season. It comes with the territory. I remember 2 years ago, everyone was telling me Christian McCaffrey was injury prone. They wouldn't even draft him. He's not going to play any games. And then all he's done is go out and have 2 very, very healthy seasons where he's absolutely dominated for fantasy. So I think the injury prone thing is a little bit tired. He is, a smaller running back. He's not going to get the Derrick Henry workload on the ground, but he can still give you solid usage. We've seen, smaller running backs have solid seasons. I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs is a second-year guy. He's not all that bigger than Achane, so not super concerned about the injuries. Could he get injured? Sure, but it just comes with the territory with the running back position. And then for the concern about Raheem Mostert, Mostert was legit good last year, and I do expect him to have a role. My argument here isn't that Achane is going to be 70+% opportunity share, just dominating this backfield. He is so good and has the efficiency and the touchdown upside that he does not need that type of usage to have a ceiling for fantasy like I talked about, 20 plus PPR points per game in his healthy matchups, and he was not dominating the opportunities in those games. But the people throwing out Mostert, they're like, this is his backfield. Achane has no upside with him. I am not going to let a 32-year-old running back scare me off of an elite talent in Devon Achane. At 32, Mostert can fall off a cliff at any point. And if you're someone throwing out the injury-prone thing for Devon Achane, you should probably look at Raheem Mostert's pretty extensive knee injury history. I'd say if you want to be concerned about one player's health, it's probably Raheem Mostert with that track record he has, plus the fact that he's kind of getting up there in age at 32. So in my opinion, after you have CMC, Brees, Bijan, and Gibbs, I don't know if that next tier of running backs has legit 20 plus PPR point per game upside. Saquon, Jonathan Taylor, they both have touchdown receiving concerns. You're looking at Kyron, who's maybe not going to have the same usage as last year. Like maybe you think Pacheco has that upside. I don't know. It would be a pretty big leap. But after like those top four, I'm totally fine taking a swing on like the young, extremely talented running back in a top scoring offense. And I do have him ranked as my 201, my 13th overall player. Now, I'm going to be joining a bunch of redraft leagues this year, so I'm pretty much never actually going to have to draft him there because I can pick him in every single draft if he's going mid-late second round. But if I had like one single draft, I was in the 12 spot and I was only in one league, Devon Achane would probably be one of the guys I pick at the 1-2 turn. So very, very in on Devon Achane. He's one of the unique situations where running backs are actually getting undervalued in like more casual platforms, RB hungry platforms, ESPN, Yahoo, where running backs are pushed up. Devon Achane is like the one name that's not getting that push. So I think he's a great value, and I think he can be a league winner this season. Now, my next running back here that I think is a league winner is going to be Jonathan Brooks. He's being drafted as the running back 29, like a round 8, round 9 pick. And I do not think that Jonathan Brooks is going to be the guy who elevates you into the playoffs, but I definitely think he has the upside to be the guy to win you your leagues once you do make the playoffs. His ADP is obviously being limited because he is coming off a torn ACL. He tore it on November 11th. He's already passed that like 9-month minimum return timetable, but it seems like he is still very likely to miss at least the first couple of games. It doesn't make sense for the Panthers to rush him back. Probably not going to be like playoff contenders this year. So you draft this running back for the foreseeable future. I don't think they're going to want to, like I said, just like rush him back right in. There's really no incentive to do that. But I just think that if Brooks was not coming off this injury, you could make the argument he's probably like a fringe running back one. Like if he's 100% healthy heading into the season, he's probably a 4th round pick on most platforms. I kind of feel like that's where he would settle in here. We do know that there's some inherent risk with drafting someone coming off a torn ACL. It definitely can take guys like a full season removed from it to get back to 100%. Last year, we saw it with Javonte, where he just didn't look like the same guy pre-ACL. Could definitely be bouncing back here in 2024. But on the other hand, there are guys like Brees Hall who can come out and, ball out in their first season back. And Brees Hall ended up being a massive value for fantasy last year. Jonathan Brooks is 21 years old, like just recently turned 21. He's a very good athlete. If I'm going to bet on someone coming off a torn ACL in their first year back, that's kind of the archetype I'm looking for. Good athlete, younger player. He had a great junior season before he did suffer that torn ACL. In 10 games, he rushed for 1,139 yards, caught 25 passes for 286 receiving yards, and then scored 11 touchdowns. So a strong pure runner, but also someone who has that pass catching upside, which I think is going to really elevate him for fantasy. We saw Brooks get drafted in the mid-second round of this most recent draft, and that is pretty significant draft capital for a running back. I mean, just a standard running back going in the second round is legit in today's NFL, but coming off a torn ACL and still going mid-round 2, I think is a great sign for Jonathan Brooks and how highly the Panthers view him. He's going to be paired with Dave Canales, who just used Rachaad White as a workhorse last season. So I'm expecting the Panthers to kind of slow play Jonathan Brooks. I don't think he's going to be a workhorse the second he touches the field. Maybe he's not super startable, week 3, week 4, week 5, week 6. But I think once we're getting to mid-season, that's where he can start to kind of take over this backfield. I think Canales is going to get him involved as a pass catcher, use him creatively. He's being drafted as a mid-tier running back 3. And I think once we're getting towards the end of the season, like that playoff push into the playoffs, I think he does have legit top 12 running back upside to end the season. So if you feel like you can weather the storm, maybe you're in like a 10-team league where you feel like you have a great shot of making the playoffs, or maybe you've just killed your draft through the first like 7, 8 rounds and you feel like you can take on a slow start from a guy like Jonathan Brooks, I think he can definitely, pay it back to you in that playoff push into the fantasy playoffs to be a league winner for you. Now, the third and final league winning running back I want to talk about here is Chase Brown. He's being drafted as the running back 35 in round 10. And I just think Chase Brown has too much upside to be going this late in drafts. Joe Mixon is gone, no longer the Bengals running back 1. The Bengals' top 2 running backs are pretty clearly Zach Moss and then Chase Brown, who I'm talking about here. And neither guy really has like a ton of investment. Typically at the running back position, you can kind of follow the money or the draft capital. Neither guy's really killing it in that department. Zach Moss signed a 2-year, $8 million deal. Chase Brown was a 5th-round pick in last year's draft. So not a big contract, not a huge investment in terms of the draft capital. So I feel like they're kind of on an even playing field here. Looking at Chase Brown, solid size, 5'10", 210 pounds, really good athlete, ran a 4.4 340, also can catch passes. So a pretty solid overall running back here. And I think when we're just looking at this potential split from Chase Brown's perspective, I feel like there are 3 main outcomes. The first and probably most likely one is that this is going to be a solid split. You probably lean towards Chase Brown taking most of the receiving work, Zach Moss getting more involved on the goal line. If this split does happen and it's pretty much like a 50-50 backfield, then I think both of them are probably weekly running back 3s. And I feel like if you're drafting Chase Brown at running back 35 and you're telling me you're splitting this, good Bengals offense, their backfield down the middle, I think I'm fine with that with where I'm drafting him. And then you also have that built-in like handcuff upside where they could be in a split, but if Zach Moss gets injured, then Chase Brown has more upside. I think the other outcome or the second outcome would be that there's upside that maybe they start off in a committee. Chase Brown is just the straight up better running back. They like him over Zach Moss, and he kind of earns this lead role in this Bengals offense, which would obviously be a massive win at his current like fringe running back 3 ADP. And then the last outcome is that, Zach Moss might end up being the guy here. They prefer him. He ends up being the lead option. But even in that situation, like Chase Brown still isn't useless. He would then become, one of the more valuable handcuffs in the NFL here. So I just think if I can get a crack at an ambiguous backfield on a top offense, that's a shot I just have to take here in the 10th round because you could be looking back on this season. Chase Brown, improved throughout the season. He's the younger option, a little bit unproven, but he makes his stamp. He stands out, ends up leading this Bengals backfield, and you were getting that Bengals RB1 in round 10. And I'm not even really here making like an extreme stand that like Chase Brown is better than Zach Moss. But on most platforms, Zach Moss is going a round or more earlier than Chase Brown. And I just don't think that should be the case. I'm pretty sure I have them back to back in my rankings. So if you can get, the other half of that backfield at a cheaper price, I think it's definitely something you should look to capitalize on. So those are going to be my 3 league-winning running backs. We have Achane, Jonathan Brooks, and Chase Brown. Let me know your thoughts on these 3 players. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Would love to hear it. If you want to check out the rankings, the link is in the description. Thank you all for stopping by, and I will see you in the next one.